Dear Pirate 101 and Wizard 101 community, let us talk about Pirate 101 and how it may be used to drive the content that you wish so badly to see in both games. Let us talk about how Pirate 101 can finally take this dead game off the dust heap and make it into something truly great. But first, let me address a very important question I am likely to get. Why wouldn't Kingsisle just put out a new world? It would cause many players to join the game again. Well, there are a couple of reasons for this. Number one, it is much more rewarding for them to put out a world for Wizard 101 than Pirate 101. It has a much larger player base. Number two, they have to deal with the inevitable fact of the law of diminishing returns. When content is added to a game, it makes it so that each and every player has to become much more invested in it in order to truly enjoy that game. This makes new players much less likely to join that said game. On top of that, players inevitably leave. They always do. So, what I am saying is, up to a certain point, adding updates to a game is very beneficial. But once more efforts render less rewards, then that is when the law of diminishing returns kicks into play and a game starts to die. Now, you may be thinking, hey, Pirate 101 doesn't really have that much content. Well, let us also consider this. When a game becomes much more complicated, it becomes much harder to balance. We are already experiencing many issues with many of the powers and many of the aspects in this game. There are many bugs that you may not or may know about, and you will definitely know about these bugs if you do a significant amount of PvP. Now, I'll be getting more into how PvP ties into PvE later. That is not what this section of the video is about. But the fact remains is that Kingsisle has many bugs that it needs to fix in this game, and the more and more complicated they make it, the more and more players will leave and less new players will want to join. In recent years, no doubt, you've observed how many esports leagues have emerged and have made billions of dollars for their gaming company. Kingsisle could do the exact same thing while sticking to their business model of creating family-friendly games that children can play safely, and I'll be explaining how. Alright, so what about esports in Pirate 101? Why is it a good idea? Well, it would do one thing for sure. It would cause players to have a reason to continue playing this game while not creating any negative externalities like balance issues or the fact that players feel like they have to become more invested in this game. It would cause new players to join based off of that fact, and players would also be less likely to leave because they feel obligated to continue playing due to the very powerful urge to compete. Alright, now I will address the issues and concerns that the PvE community has. Now, PvE players are likely thinking, hey, I don't even do PvP, how is this going to benefit me? Well, let me ask you this. In a game like League of Legends, or any other game based solely on competition in general, which games have the highest PvE population? Well, as I said, League of Legends, there's Age of Empires, there are many names that I could keep naming throughout this video. But the point stands that when a game is geared towards competition, it is also more beneficial towards the players who do not compete at all. Not only that, is it would provide the reason, the money, the other resources like time and manpower to create the worlds that you, the PvE players, would love to see added to this game. And they would be able to do that all while keeping the game balanced because they have the resources to do so. Alright, Pirate 101 and Wizard 101 community. This is where I explain to you guys what the Kingsisle business model is and why it is so very important. And for those of you at Kingsisle who may be watching this video, I will also explain why the concept of an esports league could fit so well with your business model. Now, I went to the Pirate 101 website and I went to places that were official to Kingsisle Games in general. I think I visited their very own website, their Facebook, way back in the day. And from the beginning, the entire purpose of Kingsisle was made very apparent for all to see. And that purpose is basically to provide MMO games that are family friendly yet fun for everyone to play and that are very safe for children. They wanted to create something truly beautiful and make the world a better place, which I fully agree. That sounds like a very great and noble cause. You may be thinking, doesn't esports cause a community to become toxic? And I will explain why that is not the case. Alright, so what causes a game to attract a lot of toxic players? Well, let us start with the fact that there are two types of players in a community. There are the players that make your online experience a true joy. And this is the reason why we play online games, is to interact with players that we enjoy being around. But then there are players that we would go to all measures possible to try and avoid. These are the toxic players. Now, a healthy community will have as few toxic players as possible. Wizard 101 has a lot of toxic players, as you well know if you've been around for any length of time, and Pirate 101 is definitely no different. That being said, how do you cause these players to leave? Well, it is very simple. You stop rewarding them. Now, I mean this in the nicest way possible, of course. I'm just trying to help you guys. You guys do your part to ban players who act in toxic ways, but what I'm trying to show you guys here is how you can address this issue from the roots instead of the stem. So, what about Pirate 101 and Wizard 101 rewards toxic players? I can answer that very simple question with one very simple word. Chance. Chance, RNG, and the fact that skill in this game is oftentimes not rewarded. Now, the same is very much applicable to games that are based mostly on reflexes as well. What players fail to understand, especially if they are very bad at the game or very toxic in the community, is that the reason that they lost or won a match was not always necessarily due to skill. A lot of the times people win or lose matches in this game is simply due to luck because of high rolls, low rolls, criticals, the idea of accuracy and dodge instead of solid hits. Many factors in this game cause players to think that they are better than they are. And the thing about bad players, guys, the thing about toxicity in general, and players who are toxic, is they scare away so many people in real life and in other games. They search for these games that are chance-based so that, number one, they can feel good about themselves, and number two, they can give good players a hard time in order to satisfy their craving for attention. That is why Pirate 101 and Wizard 101 rewards people who are toxic. That being said, let's have a look at this game from the people who actually care about it. The people who actually care about this game get very upset, as they very well should, when they do everything that they should and reasonably could do to win a match, yet they lose because the game decides that it is not their lucky day. Guys, there is nothing worse than doing everything to outplay your opponent and losing anyway. Do I really need to say more? This is an issue that needs to be resolved, and this is why RNG is a huge problem. Not only the fact that it attracts so many toxic players, but the fact that it punishes the most committed players in any game that it is a part of. It is in no way good whatsoever. Alright, here's how Kingsisle can help solve some of their problems with an esports league. By creating such a thing, they would shift their focus more towards the balance and the strategic aspect of the game. Therefore, it would cause the toxic players in the community to leave, and it would make it more attractive for other members of the online gaming community to join that game. That is the main thing that it would do. And as I mentioned earlier, guys, it would also cause a lot of people to join without any negative externalities, because a lot of people who aren't even really competitive love watching competitive gameplay. Alright, this deserves to be addressed as well. There are indeed games and communities that are very competitive that have an esports league of some sort that are also incredibly toxic. Think about League of Legends, for example. League of Legends does very well for itself. It makes a lot of money, but it does also keep around some toxic people as well, some toxic players. Well, let me put it to you this way. If you have good reflexes, that does not necessarily mean that you are likely to realize that you were outplayed. That requires a certain amount of intelligence. Not only that, in communities that are focused around intelligence and focused around strategic plays, they are less likely to pay attention to drama in the first place. Therefore, drama and toxic players tend to go very much unchecked and very much rewarded in such games that are competitive and focus on reflexes. That being said, there are some great examples of communities that are strategically based and are also very competitive. I can think of no better example than Age of Empires. You get on that game and you very quickly realize that as far as an online community, you will never meet anyone, you will never meet a group of people that are, nicer than these people. And in the game itself, I mean, it's not super exciting. It doesn't have flashy graphics. It doesn't have regular updates. Heck, that game doesn't really update at all, except for small quality of life updates, yet it's huge. And there's a big esports community on it, and players are literally the nicest people you'll ever meet online or offline. Kingsisle, you could do this, You could very, very easily do this with the concept that you have here in Pirate 101. Alright, I'm gonna help you guys understand the situation that Kingsisle is in, and they've been in this situation for a very long time. They are much like a politician who feels like they have to offer temporary solutions and lie to their voters because these voters do not understand the basic economic processes that go into the content and every other aspect of the game. Alright, let me tell you something. Kingsisle, you're a company. Your job is to make something that will benefit your customers and that will ultimately earn you the money so that you are more motivated to make more of the awesome stuff that you make. Hopefully you realize that. You do not have to listen to your community. You do not have to listen to the people who make harmful suggestions to the game. That is what I'm trying to tell you guys. Pirate 101 is doing as poorly as it is because y'all have listened to a community that have blindly asked for updates without realizing the negative externalities, and it is time for that to change. Now, I'm not trying to tell you guys to completely ignore your community. You should actually see the words that are coming out of their mouths, so to speak, but not necessarily take it all too seriously. A lot of players will suggest very harmful things for the game, and whatever you see out there in the community, whatever you hear from your player base, I suggest you take it with a very healthy dose of skepticism, as you should with all things in life, of course. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this issue. At least for now. Maybe I'll make another video if I can think of something helpful or some type of guide or something. But for now, it's been me, the Fearsome Rubber Ducky, making yet another Pirate 101 video because goodness knows I really love this game. Peace out.